yourself and the ones you love today. Fallofamerica.net. Hi folks, this is Alex Jones, and I want to tell you about the Silver Lungs Generator. Now you can produce pure and endless colloidal silver and deliver the solution directly into the bloodstream by breathing the solution through the lungs. The respiratory system is the first line of defense for airborne pathogens and viruses. The Silver Lungs Generator infuses the respiratory system with your self-produced nano-silver solutions and also delivers the silver nanoparticles instantly into the bloodstream. With continued legislation threatening the sale of nano-silver products, you can now produce pure and endless colloidal silver with the Silver Lungs Generator. Very easy to follow step-by-step instructions are provided, making production fast and simple. Go to www.silverlungs.com today and learn more about the breakthrough technology of the Silver Lungs Generator. That's www.silverlungs.com.
He's the T-Rex of political talk. Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
Joining us for the next 52 minutes is Larry B. Kraft, constitutional attorney based in Huntsville, Alabama, who specializes in criminal defense cases, primarily involving the federal income tax. And he's won a lot of cases in the highest courts of the land. He's a real patriot constitutional lawyer. That's why we like to have him on. In fact, we should have him on a lot more than we've had him on. Just time flies when you're fighting tyranny and having fun. And we'll give you his website on screen for prisonplanet.tv viewers as well, and have him verbally give it out to radio listeners coming up. Now, he sent us something I hadn't seen. I'd seen some of her law papers. I'd seen decisions and positions she put out as Solicitor General. I had seen how she lobbied in White House minutes for radical political agenda. She's anti-Second Amendment. She's made statements like, if the government doesn't like speech, we can disappear it. We've got the diversity czar in the White House saying we need to have censorship like Hugo Chavez of Venezuela. I've seen Cass Sunstein, of course, say put a tax on at first the internet and alternative news, then start arresting people. That's now been proposed by the FCC and made national news, even in the Associated Press. I mean, this is really happening, to start the taxing, to start the black boxes that decide what you can get, the prior restraint of information. So it's all going on. But I wanted to get him on last week about Kagan coming up, but he separately this morning sent us her thesis. The conclusion's lengthy, and I've only read part of it, but he's read the whole 100-page document, The Final Conflict. The globalists always call it the final revolution, the final conflict. Socialism in New York City, 1900 to 1933. And just scanning over it, I said to B. Kraft, is this how the socialist wonderful dream failed when the progressives tried to take over? And he said, yes. So we're going to get him to go over the lowlights of this. And of course, last year we got Hillary's thesis that had been sealed. How great Lenin was. How great. I mean, these people are monsters. They are revolutionaries overthrowing our republic. They want to silence you. They want to make you a ward of the state. But I wanted to first, with Larry B. Kraft, get his take, and he has heard it. I asked him, of Kagan's own words, it's fine if the law bans books because government won't really enforce it. This is her before the Supreme Court as the Solicitor General, and the Supreme Court saying, well, this statute that's being challenged in a court case, we're saying it should be changed. Not even a statute, it's a regulation, because it doesn't matter if it hasn't been used. This says the government can ban books preemptively, and so we want it thrown out. And she says, no, if it hasn't been used, we're not going to voluntarily change it in the federal agencies, because it doesn't matter, because she wants to keep that power there. And I don't know what you legally call this, but the justices, got angry with her and did reverse her. But here's an article, Nat Hentoff, Philadelphia man indicted for using right to free speech. And I read this earlier in the show, but I want to reread it because it's so important. This has been all over the news, but the news is reporting it as if it's a good thing. Bruce Shore had lost his job. He saw Senator Jim Bunning on C-SPAN on Washington Journal talking about how he didn't want to have to go debate unemployment benefits because he wanted to go to a baseball game. And that made the man livid because he was on unemployment. So he sent an email saying, "Are you all insane?" That's quote, "No checks equal no food for me. Do you get it?" And then it goes on how the grand jury indicted him, the FBI arrested him, and U.S. Marshals came and got him. And they quoted in the indictment by the grand jury the language in the Communications Act of 1934 as amended and updated, and including electronic messages of the Telecommunications Act of 96. And it said he did utilize the device to abuse, threaten, or harass any person who received the communication. And so they're now saying, well, calling them crazy or asking if you're insane is now an act of again, what's the key term they use here? Of trying to find it, of annoyance. Annoyance will put you in prison. Now, if that isn't the essence of tyranny, I don't know what is. So I wanted to dovetail that with Kagan's asinine statement of, well, just because it's on the books and we haven't used it, let's leave it there. Let's get Larry Becraft's take on that. Larry, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Alex. How you doing?
Good. Break down what you think of this before I play the short clip.
You mean Kagan?
Yes, Kagan's arguing that we can have a law on the books to ban books.
This gets back around to, if you remember when Sotomayor was going through her confirmation hearings, she was asked questions about the Second Amendment. And, she seemed to acknowledge, it means what it says. I'm not going to be an advocate on the court that's going to do something different. And yet, yesterday when that decision came out, guess where Sotomayor is? She's in the minority. She's against it.
Yeah, she said, I support the Chicago total gun ban, just like the Attorney General, just like Obama as a senator. I mean, they're a pack of liars.
Kagan has an agenda. And her agenda is revealed. One of the two things that I haven't had access to are some University of Chicago Law Review articles that she wrote. She wrote one in 1993, and she wrote one in 1996. The first one is entitled Regulation of Hate Speech and Pornography. And the second one in 96, Private Speech, Public Purpose, the role of governmental motive in the First Amendment doctrine. Now, if you take a look at, all the cases dealing with the First Amendment, take into consideration what the First Amendment says. Congress will make no law. And then take a look at the decisions, and the court's pretty strong in upholding First Amendment rights and saying government.
Yeah, her opinion in these law reviews is ass backwards.
Absolutely, but she has an agenda, and the agenda is to move away and bring in a new criteria for judging rights under the First Amendment. Right now, the way the Supreme Court will look at it is, here's speech, somebody said it, and is government abridging it, stopping the speech? She wants to come along, and if you read these two law review articles that she's written, her objective is to, let's bring in a new format here for analysis of it. And government can regulate speech if government has a good motive.
And the quote is, if we're stopping discrimination, prior constraint is okay, we can disappear the speech.
Correct. And I think that's one of the reasons why she's being promoted to the court.
Yeah, they said, my God, this woman ought to be running Nazi Germany or Soviet Russia. In fact, you say you have those papers. I've read them before on air, but do you have those actual quotes in front of you?
Well, I don't have those quotes. I've got some quotes that I pulled up for the purposes of the show. Like in the 1993 Law Review article, she stated, the question I pose is whether there are any ways to achieve at least some of the goals of, anti-pornography and anti-hate in spite of the First Amendment. And then she goes on to say, we could come up with some legislation that might be able to surmount the First Amendment hurdles. That's her major point that she makes in her 93.
Yeah, I've seen that quote. Like the First Amendment's a hurdle you got to get over. And boy, isn't she a genius, because she's going to figure out. I mean, Thomas Jefferson had these quotes about, let's not have people in there in the future that twist the meaning of things. Let's be very clear. And it is very clear.
Well, that's exactly what her purpose is to change the meaning, make it more confusing, to totally stand it on its head. Now, the 96 Law Review article she wrote she's bringing in a new concept, and you'll find that, law review articles written by, the pointy-headed people like Elena Kagan, the whole purpose is to begin to change the philosophy of things. And, in this particular article, she's bringing in the idea that, we ought to look at the First Amendment from the perspective of, does the government have a good motive? And, if the government has a motive in suppressing certain speech and it's beneficial and it's a good motive, that plays a role in whether or not we can squelch free speech. And so you can see, if she gets on the court, First Amendment,